Okay, so you guys really sent us down a wild one this time with this YouTube transcript
Yeah.
from the Clif High Sci-Fi World channel.
Oh, yeah, Clif High?
And this video is called Secrets Revealed, Black Money Machines, Clif High Explorer's Guide to Sci-Fi World.
Catchy title.
Yeah, just dropped yesterday, April 7th. And wow.
A lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
So got to figure out what we're going to do with this.
Our mission, should we choose to accept it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take this video. We're gonna look at all of the financial and economic claims,
Right.
and then we're gonna pull out the important takeaways.
A signal from the noise.
Yeah, exactly. The stuff that you guys really need to hear, and there's a lot in here.
There is.
So we're talking about crashing stock market, a weakening dollar,
All right.
these black money machines.
Oh, money machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Right.
Some pretty big changes coming up potentially.
Buckle up. So right off the bat, the video makes a pretty crucial point. They're saying that this global stock market crash,
Oh yeah.
which, may or may not happen. We don't know.
Right. Nobody knows.
But they're saying that shouldn't be seen as the fundamental problem.
Like that's not the root cause.
No, it's more like a symptom of something else going on deeper.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So they present it as like the symptom of deeper issues that are within our whole dollar-based economic system, right?
So the dollar's the problem.
That seems to be what they're getting at. And that framing right there, that's really key to understanding everything that comes after.
Okay, so the symptom is a stock market crash, but the disease is the dollar.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, well, let's get into that then,
Yeah.
because they spend a lot of time talking about the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. At the heart of it all, right, according to the speaker, is the U.S. dollar itself.
Okay.
And they describe it as a Federal Reserve note,
Okay.
fiat currency, no intrinsic backing issued by, this private entity.
This Federal Reserve.
Right, the Federal Reserve System.
Yeah.
And they really emphasize that this entity, while, super influential, not really federal in the way that, we traditionally think of.
Not part of the government.
Right, not really.
Interesting.
And, they don't actually hold physical reserves in the way that people might imagine.
Oh, okay. So there's not like a vault of gold somewhere.
Yeah, it's not like that.
Okay.
More like a network of private banks is how they describe it.
Okay, interesting. And they're saying this is the root of all of our problems, right?
Yeah. Well, then they tie it into inflation, which, we're all experiencing right now.
Yeah.
And they suggest that because there's this lack of fundamental confidence in an unbacked dollar, it means that you need more and more and more of those dollars.
To buy the same stuff.
Exactly, to exchange for the same goods and services.
Milk, eggs, bread.
All that good stuff.
So they're saying inflation is because people are losing confidence in the dollar.
Well, that's one way to look at it. It's interesting, right? Yeah.
Because, it's not the only way that economists, explain inflation.
Right.
You've got increased demand, you've got supply chain issues.
All that stuff.
And just the sheer volume of money in circulation.
Makes sense.
But the speaker is saying that, there's this psychological element to it, too.
Okay.
If people start to, doubt or be less certain about what's going to happen to the dollar in the future,
Yeah.
they're going to want more of them,
If it's going to be worthless.
Exactly.
I want more of them now.
Right.
Okay.
So that's an interesting perspective.
Okay, so we've got a dollar that's backed by nothing.
Right.
Which is causing inflation because people are losing confidence in it.
So far, so good.
Okay. But then they get into this whole thing about Trump and something called Doge work.
Doge work. All right. This is where it gets a little out there.
Yeah, so they're saying that Trump and his group are trying to transition the global financial system
Okay.
away from this Federal Reserve note dollar. They're trying to get rid of the dollar as we know it.
Yeah, and their goal supposedly is to move towards a dollar that's backed by what they're calling constitutionals.
Constitutionals.
Yeah, and they don't really define this clearly.
Right, that's part of the mystery here.
But they suggest that it could include currencies from the BRICS nations.
Like Russia and China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gold, but it wouldn't be directly convertible.
So like a gold-backed dollar, but not really.
Yeah, it's kind of vague.
It is.
But the craziest part is the timeline that they give.
Oh, yeah.
Less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years to completely overhaul the global financial system.
Yeah. That's a huge claim, right?
Absolutely. And, this idea of getting away from a purely fiat currency system,
Yeah.
It's not a new idea. You see it pop up in certain economic circles.
People want to go back to the gold standard.
Right, exactly. But this constitutionals thing, it's kind of a new twist on that.
Okay.
It sounds like they're talking about this multi-asset backing, which is different from what we have now, where it's just kind of floated out there.
Okay. And 2 years is not a lot of time.
Not at all for such a huge change.
Okay, so that's a lot to take in already, but then they bring in this Doge work thing.
Right, and this is where it gets even more interesting.
So Doge work is this alleged behind-the-scenes effort to clean up corruption.
So like a crackdown on, the bad guys.
Yeah, and not just like major criminal stuff.
Right.
But even like smaller, everyday kind of corruption.
Interesting.
And they're saying that this Doge work is actually having a weird side effect.
Okay.
So by disrupting all these corrupt financial channels, it's typically restricting the flow of dollars that would normally end up in the banks.
So the money's not going where it's supposed to.
Yeah. It's basically tightening up global liquidity.
So it's almost like they're saying that these illicit activities, they're actually part of, the money that's available in the regular economy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird thought, right?
It is, but if that were true, if that were happening,
Yeah.
wouldn't we see signs of it somewhere else, like in other financial data?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any evidence for that?
We'll have to dig into that.
Okay, but then they bring up this bond war.
Bond war?
Yeah, between the U.S. dollar and the euro.
Okay.
And they say that this is this competition in the market for government bonds. This is a major factor in how the Federal Reserve is deciding about interest rates.
Right.
Because if the Fed lowers interest rates to try to help the stock market or boost the economy,
Right.
it could make U.S. Treasury bonds less attractive to international investors.
Compared to euro bonds.
Right.
Frank Sound.
And that could weaken the dollar against the euro.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty standard dynamic, in international finance.
Right.
You've got investors. They're always looking at, yields and risks and comparing different bonds.
Right.
And if suddenly, Europe looks better than the U.S., then you're going to see a shift, and that's going to affect the exchange rates.
Okay, so the Fed is stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, they've got to think about what's happening internationally as well as domestically
Gotcha.
when they make decisions.
Okay, but now we're getting into some really out there stuff.
Okay, hit me.
So Clif High claims that these Doge guys,
Okay, the corruption fighters.
yeah, they found 14 computer systems.
14?
14 computers that were printing U.S. dollars illegally.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Like printing? Printing?
Yeah, like physical Federal Reserve notes.
Not just like digital ones.
No, like actual paper money.
Wow.
Printed without any reporting or oversight from the Federal Reserve.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, and get this, they claim these machines have been running for at least 12 years.
12 years of secret money printing.
12 years.
I mean, if that's true,
Yeah.
that throws a wrench into everything we thought we knew.
Right, because now all of the official statistics about how much money is out there
Yeah.
and the value of all the debt,
They could all be wrong.
they're saying they're totally unreliable.
Because it's based on bad data.
Yeah, because they don't know about all this extra money.
Wow. I mean, a secret operation running for over a decade?
Hmm.
Printing money? I mean, that's...
Pretty crazy, right?
It's almost unimaginable, with all
Yeah.
the security and checks and balances that are supposed to be in place.
And to really drive this point home, they present their own data.
Their own data, okay.
And they suggest that the actual amount of dollars in circulation
Yeah.
could be over 1,000 times higher.
1,000 times.
1,000 times higher than what's officially reported.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's way more than just a rounding error.
Right. And they say that this is the real reason.
This is the real reason for inflation.
For inflation, for the high cost of housing, everything.
Because each dollar is worth way less.
Way less.
Yeah, we think.
Potentially just a few pennies.
Wow. I mean, a discrepancy that big
Yeah.
between what's reported and what they're claiming.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, it would mean that the dollar is devalued way more than we think.
Right.
But, we have to be careful here.
Okay, okay.
Because this is based on their data.
Right. We don't know where this data came from.
Exactly. And we don't know, how they got those numbers.
We don't know their methodology.
So it's hard to really judge, from a traditional economic point of view.
Okay, so we've got these 14 secret money machines
Yeah.
pumping out tons of cash,
Allegedly.
allegedly. Yeah, and that's just phase one.
Phase one.
Phase one, there's a phase two.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and phase two involves even more black money machines.
More machines.
More machines. But these ones are connected to,
UFOs.
yeah, reverse engineering of space alien UFOs.
Okay, we've gone from economics to sci-fi.
Yeah, things are getting weird.
Definitely.
And they claim these machines have been running for 60 years.
60 years.
Way longer than the first 14.
So they're saying there's this whole other secret money system
Yeah.
tied to alien technology.
And pumping out even more dollars.
All right, so if this is true.
Yeah.
We're talking about a system that's been hidden for decades.
Deeply entrenched.
Extremely secretive.
Yeah, and they say that shutting down these black project machines
Okay.
will have huge consequences.
Like what?
Well, they estimate that it could reduce the annual creation of dollars by 30%.
30%?
Which represents a lot of money.
That's a significant chunk of change.
Yeah, and this money is supposedly going to defense contractors like Lockheed Martin.
Oh, okay.
Raytheon to keep these projects secret.
To keep it all under wraps.
Yeah, they even claim that 80% of those funds
80%.
are not for the technology itself,
What?
but for the cover-up.
Wow, so they're saying that most of this money is going to keep this whole thing hidden.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a huge claim.
It is.
If true, it would raise a lot of questions about, how these big defense contractors operate.
And about transparency in government spending?
Absolutely.
Okay, so with all of this secret money printing going on,
Yeah.
it's not surprising that they're predicting an economic crisis.
A big one.
Yeah, and they say it doesn't matter what the Federal Reserve does.
They can't fix it.
Yeah, they're saying the system is too messed up.
So from their point of view, this manipulation of the money supply,
Yeah.
it's created this fundamental instability.
Okay.
And they're saying that the tools that we normally use
Right.
to fix the economy, they just won't work.
They're not strong enough.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do they think is going to happen?
Well, they get pretty specific.
Okay.
They predict a real estate crisis
Oh, no.
starting as early as May.
That soon?
Yeah, they're talking about declining property prices, a drop in sales.
Because people can't get loans.
Right, because there's less liquidity in the system.
Okay.
And they even say that banks might start failing,
Banks failing?
even big ones.
Because they're involved in this black money.
That's their claim.
I mean, a real estate crisis is something a lot of economists are worried about anyway.
Yeah, with interest rates going up,
Yeah.
it's definitely a concern.
But they're saying it's because of this black money.
It's a different explanation for sure,
Yeah.
but an interesting one.
Okay. And they're also predicting rising tension.
Social and political tension.
Yeah. Throughout the rest of the year.
Oh, boy.
And they say it could lead to some big disclosures.
About what?
Reverse engineered alien technology.
Alien technology.
Yeah.
Around July.
So they're connecting the economic stuff with alien revelations.
Yeah, they think it's all going to come out.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a specific timeline now.
July.
This is getting pretty dramatic.
Yeah, and it gets even weirder.
Weirder.
They suggest that the corporations who are involved in this reverse engineering,
Right.
they might get desperate.
Because they're losing their funding.
Yeah, and they might do something crazy.
Oh, like what?
Like stage a fake alien invasion.
Yes, fake alien invasion.
Yeah, to distract everyone.
Okay, that is out there.
Yeah, that's pretty far out.
It's definitely not something you see in most economic forecasts.
But it fits with their narrative,
Yeah.
These powerful secret groups operating behind the scenes.
Doing whatever they want.
With technology we don't even understand.
Okay, so we've got a market crash.
Potentially.
We've got banks failing.
Maybe.
And we've got a fake alien invasion.
A possibility, according to this video.
But they're also predicting deflation.
Deflation?
Yeah, they think prices are going to go down.
Wait, so not inflation?
No, deflation.
But everyone's worried about inflation right now.
I know, it's strange, right?
It is.
But they're saying that as these black money machines get shut down, there's going to be less money in circulation.
Okay, less money, less demand.
Yeah, and that's going to cause prices to fall.
So it's like the opposite of what we're seeing now.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And this deflation is going to affect cryptocurrencies.
Crypto. Oh, yeah. Everyone wants to know about crypto.
They say initially the dollar value of crypto might drop.
Okay.
Because there will be fewer dollars around.
Yes.
But in the long run, they think the dollar itself is going to weaken.
Because of all this overprinting.
Exactly. So the value of things like gold,
right,
crypto, other real assets will actually increase.
So crypto could go down at first, but then go up.
Yeah. They think it'll be a good long-term investment.
Okay.
And they are not happy with the Federal Reserve.
No.
They say the Fed is going to mishandle this whole situation.
Because they're too focused on this bond war.
Yeah, with the euro.
And they think this could lead to a bigger crash
A real crash.
around October or November.
So not a good outlook.
Not really.
And to wrap it all up,
Yeah.
they reiterate that the suppression of alien technology is ending this year.
Sooner than we thought.
Yeah. And then they make some very specific predictions
What?
about Israel,
Yeah.
about Jewish people globally.
Okay.
They say there will be negative consequences.
For them specifically?
Yeah. They blame the financial problems on this Elohim worship cult.
Elohim worship cult.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
And they predict social unrest,
Oh, boy.
problems for the woke community,
Okay.
for the medical system.
So it's not just economics anymore.
No, it's getting societal now.
Right.
Okay, well, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
We went from a crashing stock market to a fake alien invasion.
And everything in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really unique perspective on the global economy.
It is.
You know, we went through all the claims from the video,
Mm-hmm.
the secret money printing.
Alien technology.
Yeah, and how it's all connected.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
But even if a lot of these claims are way outside, what economists normally talk about,
Yeah.
it does make you think,
About what?
about transparency in our financial system,
Okay.
about stability,
Mm-hmm.
about whether there are things happening behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Right.
And maybe those things are less dramatic than aliens,
Sure.
but still really important.
Okay, so a final thought for you guys.
Yeah.
Given all of this.
All this craziness.
You have the secret money, the alien technology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the biggest hidden factor
The biggest hidden factor.
that's affecting the global economy?
Okay, so not aliens.
No.
Mm.
Something maybe a little more down to earth.
More realistic.
Yeah. But still something that we're not really paying attention to.
That's a great question.
Yeah, something to think about.
It is.
As you're exploring all these issues and considering different points of view.
Right.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. It was a wild one.
See you next time.
See ya.